This is Jordan Poyer, safety for the Buffalo Bills, and you are now listening to Cover One Buffalo Podcast. Let's go.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo Podcast. You are joining your normal partners in crime, Greg Thompson and Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how we doing?
I'm living the dream, man. We've made it through this long, just horrible, boring content that everybody had to sit through, and now we're here to the regular season, and I couldn't be more jacked.
That's all. Yeah, fantastic shirt, by the way.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thrift store for anybody watching. $8, can't beat it.
Love it, love it. And tonight we are joined by a special guest, Kaiir Rogers of Bleacher Report, Stick to Football. A very, very busy man. Kaiir, how we doing?
What's up, boys? I appreciate you having me. It's going to be a lot of fun for Jets-Bills Week 1.
Yeah, Aaron was talking about that beforehand. It's a little tough to start right out with a division game, but off we go.
And obviously for the Bills, a road division game. Just down the street, I guess some could say. But, yeah, it's definitely not going to be easy for either side.
No, we were touching on it a little bit here before we went live that the Week 1 stuff's so wonky, and that's why I really hate division games is you can afford to lose one of those wonky games at the beginning of the year to somebody else, but you hate to lose a wonky game to a division opponent. So we've seen it before with Bills-Jets, a couple kick returns, and it's like, oh, that never happens, and that's the game. So I'm hoping it's nothing crazy and just a nice start to the season.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, too, is you have 2 second-year quarterbacks. So everybody's excited about the jumps they show over the summer for preseason, but how many times have we been fooled by that in the past before? Every team's been fooled by it. So I'm not doubting either Sam Darnold or Josh Allen, but it's amazing how quickly what you learn Week 1 or really what's a mirage.
Yeah, we just did the induction for preseason Hall of Fame Nathan Peterman the other week, and it was really exciting.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Preseason legend Nathan Peterman to some.
Before we jump in, everybody listening, come on out. Check us out, cover1.net. Download the app. Be able to get all the updates, video breakdowns from Eric, awesome rundowns from Rob and from Fernando, the draft coverage from Christian and Russell. You can listen to Aaron and I, ramble on. We're worth tolerating to get to the good stuff. But come on over, check us out. Give us a rating, give us a review wherever you're listening to us. Tell somebody about it. A little bit about what's going on here for anyone who's not familiar. Kaiir has multiple successful areas going as a primary contributor on Bleacher Report and has a great podcast, Stick to Football. Kaiir, where can the people find your work?
Yeah, of course, at Kaiir J. Rogers on Twitter, Kaiir James Rogers on Instagram, obviously anywhere over Bleacher Report. Bleacher Report Gridiron is our new football brand. So a lot going on there, and I will be around the country these next couple of months, so maybe you'll even find me in person a couple of times.
Beautiful, beautiful. We're looking forward to it. As we kind of get rolling into it here, we'll have a couple questions, talk about the game itself. But first, why don't we just give you a minute to kind of talk about what has it been like kind of getting into the offseason here, how the expectations have been for the Jets and what you're looking at, coming through preseason and camp and now finally getting to the go live.
Yeah, well, it's nice that there's actual football now because, as always, it was a wild ride. But more than ever, when you have a GM and a regime really get fired after a draft, that's not typically too common, although we've seen it a couple of times in recent years.
We've been there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And I think the funny thing is it feels like it will greatly work out for both sides. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the Bills front office, especially their draft this year. And I really liked what Joe Douglas did in Philadelphia. Now, Howie Roseman is viewed as the guy, but Joe really owned the draft there. That was his baby. And I think the Jets are excited to have somebody that can run a draft. And that's where a lot of the hype about the future took off. But most importantly, things are about this year with Adam Gase, with Sam Darnold. There are plenty of question marks like any other team. But I think for the first time in a long time, there are a lot of people that believe this is a New York Jets offense that could score a lot of points.
No, it's exciting. I think that it really can lead to, some genuine battles. The fact that the guys are friends off the field, the idea that you could have 2 quarterbacks and kind of rebuild some of that rivalry outside of he who shall not be named. It'd be fun to have some other quarterbacks start to,
I like that.
live it up.
I really like that.
And I think it's interesting you talk about that offense and stuff because I do think we were talking about this a little bit here before we went live that the fan base is at least how I've been gauging it on Twitter coming up really think that their team has an extreme edge over the other team. And the national media kind of really polarizes the Jets, I think. They either love them or they hate them.
Yep.
I think the teams are both similar in that, because I think we as Bills fans, at least I'd like to think of myself as a pragmatic one, think that the offense can take that similar type step that you're talking about, the Jets being able to, and being able to put some points up in big plays like that. So I think that these teams are a little bit closer maybe than people think. I think a lot of Bills fans, at least I follow a lot of that, have this idea that we're just going to come in here and walk all over the Jets because we had a successful preseason. And if you're on the outside looking in, the movement in the front office, it looks a little chaotic. Adam Gase is an easy target if you're not a fan of his team, right? Like a little bit of an easy target. And
he's an easy target if you are too. So.
Sure, yeah. But he's a smart guy. I try to warn, he is a smart person. You don't get to where he is without having the ability to do the job. I try to tell fans a little bit to pump the brakes because we've been there where the national media and other fan bases were saying the Bills are tanking. This isn't a good team. They went on to make the playoffs. So with all that kind of coming up, and there's a lot of polarizing views of the Jets, kind of to continue on your overall, what type of team do you think that this is for the 2019 Jets?
It's honestly going to be a shootout team, a team that they don't have the corners to stop the modern-day passing game. They just don't. And whether Tremaine Johnson is on the field or not, it really doesn't matter. And if he's not, they really don't have any corners on the field. So it's going to be interesting where you have a second-year quarterback like Sam Darnold. You have somebody like Adam Gase that's viewed as an offensive – there's a time where I think he was labeled as an offensive mastermind before Sean McVay, before Kyle Shanahan. And I think he didn't live up to those expectations in Miami, but you also have to wonder if the personnel was ever right for him. So – there's a lot of expectations when you go out and you get Le'Veon Bell. You have Robbie Anderson really coming into his own as maybe a number one wide receiver, not just a deep threat anymore. You add Jamison Crowder. You get Kelechi Osemele to boost the offensive line. And most importantly, Sam Darnold looks like a franchise quarterback now. It's preseason, spring camp and all that stuff where you take it with a grain of salt. There's a lot of expectations that this football team could score a lot of points. And the bottom line is they're going to have to. They have, a corner situation where you like the talent on the defensive line up front or up the middle, whether it's Williams, Quinnen Williams and Leo Williams, C.J. Mosley, Jamal Adams, Marcus May. But the outside is the outside. You're going to get picked apart there where quarterback's going to have to throw the ball a lot. You're going to be playing from behind a lot. You're going to be having to answer on a lot of different drives. And I think for the Jets, that'll make them an exciting team to watch because everybody likes offense. It's how the league has kind of dictated the rules, especially with the pass interference calls. Now, we did see an interesting system this summer of them being reviewable, but, that's just a little trial run here. And I think for the Jets, for a team that in all those Rex Ryan years and even after or before that with Todd Bowles, and they were a grounded pound, we're going to take care of the football and we're going to play defense and we're going to win 13-6 or whatever it is. I think the Jets are going to be in a lot of 30, 35, 40-point games this year. And that can go one of two ways. You could be on the edge of some tough losses. You can come out on some really, great victories to give you some momentum. And it's going to be very interesting to watch because all the years I've been watching the Jets, they have not been that kind of football team.
Yeah, and I think it's funny how you see those trends move over time. So let's stick on that side of the ball. Let's kind of review what we see as those matchups from the Jets offense going into the Bills defense. That's the area that we've had continuity, that we returned 10 out of 11 starters, added Ed Oliver, added some other pieces, Kevin Johnson's, Kirk Coleman, a couple other depth pieces here or there, but brought back the number one pass defense in the NFL, brought back a opportunistic defense that's there. What are some of the things that you see, and maybe both sides of the coin, where's the best matchup for the Jets that you think they can potentially take advantage of, and what's the one that maybe concerns you the most?
Yeah, I think the one that I find the most interesting that could really dictate the game is probably Trey White. Where he is the most important thing to me. Now, I think the Bills really can't afford to keep him away from Robbie Anderson, as considering what Anderson's success has had, not even just in the past, but against the Bills a little bit last year with Sam Darnold. I think Trey White is, probably a top 5 corner right now pretty easily. He doesn't get the same hype that a guy that's loud like Jalen Ramsey does, or, depending on where you play, some other corners that aren't as good get love. But he's a really great player. And I think he can take away the dual passing attack. It helps everyone cheat up against somebody like Le'Veon Bell. It helps teams, maybe sell out against the run like that. And that's where Jamison Crowder probably comes into play for the Jets. Can Jamison Crowder work underneath? Is there a matchup they really like with him? Now, if he wasn't suspended, I would tell you this game is on Chris Herndon because, you know, you can only dedicate your athletic linebackers, and the Bills have enough of them, to so many places, and Le'Veon Bell will draw those. And that's why I think Le'Veon Bell could actually be neutralized in this game a little bit. I don't think we're going to see Bell come out and have a typical Le'Veon game. He'll be okay. I don't think he's going to run wild on them. I don't think he'll be running free and in his passing routes as much as he's used to, where the tight ends factor a lot, the slot receiver factors a lot, because the Bills can get home. They can get after the quarterback where you can't just drop back and take – and that's why Sam Darnold was running for his life last year in Buffalo. I remember not just one play, many plays. And it's going to be very interesting to see if the timing is there in this offense, because it's a new offense with Adam Gase. Sam Darnold was not throwing to Jamison Crowder or Le'Veon Bell last year. So the timing of those routes is really important. The pass protection is going to be vital. We haven't seen, the Jets offensive line play together this summer. The late addition of Khalil at center, he's going to be the one calling out a lot of those protections. So how ready will they be ready to go? It's a lot of question marks, but that's why it's week one, boys.
Yeah, I also agree that Trey Anderson, I think that's one that all Bills fans are looking at, because I agree with you. I think Trey is a top 5 guy. And I was on this show all year last year for about 8 weeks saying I think he's on verge of being an all-pro cornerback. And if he was in a bigger market, I think he'd be a little bit closer to it. But then the Twitter world comes and points to me about the Jets game and him getting burned a couple of times by Anderson. And I think that this is a test that a lot of Bills fans want to see him go back up against him and seeing how it's going to go. I think I got bad news for Bills fans. I think anytime these guys match up, Anderson's going to win a couple of these. He's very good. It's a hard position to play in the league, cornerback. And when you got somebody with speed that can go get the ball, that's a hard thing to do. But another matchup that really concerns me, and I was talking to Greg about this and talking about what the Jets did in the offseason to get guys. I think one of the maybe most underrated things was getting an extension for Quincy Enunwa. I really love Quincy Enunwa. He does a lot of the dirty work for this team. He's a good receiver. He's a big guy. He's a physical guy. And that concerns me against whoever it's going to be. I assume it's going to be Levi Wallace, but it could also be Kevin Johnson coming in and spelling a little bit. We saw today, Bills fans were going nuts. Duke Johnson kind of owned both those guys in some practice reps. And so I'm worried that Enunwa's physicality is going to really affect the Bills' number 2 cornerback.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, because what scares me with both, I've seen Levi, up close before playing. I've seen Kevin Johnson on TV long enough to know that if Enunwa catches the ball, he's not easy to tackle. We've seen linebackers fly off of him, safeties fly off of him. It's a tough task for any corner. It's especially tough task for both of those guys. So The question is, though, he's somebody where his hands come and go at times, and sometimes he just falls out of the offense. You have to get him involved on screens or routes underneath, whether it's a slant or a drag, and he can win over the top of the ladder, but I just haven't seen them use him like that in a while. So it's a great point to bring up Enunwa, and it's an even better point because you go back to Herndon being suspended. Enunwa, even though he's a receiver, can handle some of those tight end responsibilities of, stick routes, a lot of things, once again, really just working underneath, being a possession target.
Some red zone.
And being a red zone guy. So, and back in, you guys know Chan Gailey very well. When Enunwa's career was getting started, Chan used him as an H-back kind of tight end player. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Adam Gase really didn't show a lot in the preseason, and Enunwa is the guy nobody has really been able to figure out his role yet.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what things are still kind of hiding there, because I think we have a very similar mindset as we kind of flip over here to the Bills offense against the Jets defense. How much do we really know what Daboll is going to deploy? We saw in a couple of the games, it was you start out, 11 straight passes. Then in the next game, we run 18 out of the first 20 plays are run plays. So obviously it was very focused on that specific phase of the game, trying to do those things. It wasn't a natural, normal game plan of how they do it. So being able to kind of go through and identify what are those possibilities going to be like? We're now going up against a defense that, like you said, is really stout up the middle. You have the 2 Williams, Mosley, Mays, and Adams. That's incredible up the middle. And then maybe a little bit weaker on the outside. That's where we have some new pieces come in for the Bills. And you're looking at, can John Brown take advantage of that? Who's chasing around Cole Beasley in the slot? Is it Zay Jones or Robert Foster on the other side? what is the new backfield like now without LaShawn McCoy?
Can Josh Allen be a productive passer and get those guys if they are open? That's the big question for us.
So from your side, where do you see the matchups of what you think will be the biggest challenge and the biggest concern?
Yeah, it's something I've actually talked about a lot this week, and I highlighted 3 guys that, you guys brought up John Brown, but you wouldn't normally think of these guys as, they could beat you. I think John Brown can easily win over the top of these Jets corners, and very easily. And I think Devin Singletary and TJ Yeldon as pass catchers can be a problem. CJ Mosley is quietly very good in coverage. People think of him as a thumper and a run stopper, but he can cover because of his IQ, not even because he doesn't really have the speed. Now, Blake Cashman's a 5th-round rookie that's very, very good in coverage. But once again, you only have so many of these guys, and they're going to get beat. And I look at Singletary, and people look at the 4.6 and 4.66, and they go, he's not fast. He's one of the shiftier players available in this draft, and that's a little different with pads on than being a straight-line track guy. So, the Bills' backfield is difficult to figure out, but I think each guy can beat you in a unique way. And it goes back to, can Josh Allen take those check down options? Can Josh Allen throw a runner's ball? That's a big thing that a lot of young quarterbacks struggle with. If a runner has to, if a pass catcher has to stop and adjust, especially underneath as a running back, the play's over. But if you could throw them a runner's ball, they're going to get by those linebackers at times. So John Brown is the vertical guy in this game that I'm really curious to see if the Jets are going to shade a little help over the top even at times because their corner play has been so bad. How do they solve the running backs? And then Cole Beasley probably is going to draw Brian Poole in coverage. Poole has been a pretty solid slot corner now for the last couple of years in Atlanta, but we've seen Cole Beasley eat up guys before. So there's a lot of different targets in this offense that can get involved, and I don't really think anyone knows who's going to be the focal point. I actually don't think there will be one.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's something obviously the Bills didn't have last year. But we talked about some of the presence up the middle, and obviously there's some new pieces along the Bills' offensive line. I think that, again, we come back to fan bases getting really excited. When Bills added those pieces, there was kind of talk about how good can they be. And I was trying to, we talked on this show a lot. We went from maybe one of the worst in the entire league to about average. I think that if they play well together, they could be about average. They're going to have their hands full. Though on Sunday, and you have Mitch Morris, who has really not been around. He had this long stemming concussion. I think he's going to be able to kind of come right in, but you've had a lot of rotation. We don't know where Cody Ford's playing. Is he playing inside? Is he playing outside? I think they're just keeping that close to the vest. I'm pretty sure they know, and they're just not giving it up to the media. But there's some questions. Quentin Spain's working back up. He's missed some time. So everybody kind of points at the Jets haven't had a lot of time in building continuity, but the Bills really haven't had that much more. A lot of guys have played different pieces, but they haven't played together as a unit yet much this summer. And so it's going to be a tough task for the Bills. Can you tell us a little bit more about that inside line and how they're looking right now this summer?
They're a deep group. For what the Jets lack in corner, they make up for in depth on the offensive line. It's almost surprising they haven't gotten calls for one of them to be moved. That's how much talent they have there. Leonard Williams and Quinnen Williams are the household names, but Henry Anderson sometimes is the best player on that defensive line. And when I say sometimes, I mean a handful of games last year. He's the guy getting the sacks. He's the guy making the plays. You could play all 3 of them together. Steve McClendon's the team captain. He plays on the interior as well. They've actually kept 9, so they're going to have 2 full rotations of defensive linemen, which sounds like a college team. And Nathan Shepard, a 3rd-round pick from 2 years ago, had a really nice bounce-back summer. They got John Franklin Myers from the Rams off waivers, got a sack in the Super Bowl. It's a deep, deep group, and they have really not a ton off the edge. Jordan Jenkins is coming to his own a little bit, but that's really it for an edge presence. So if they can shoot their gaps, if they can get home, whether it's as a shade nose or whether it's as a 3-tech, that's where the Jets will get their pass rush. And Josh Allen has the speed to get outside and avoid that. But it's tough for a quarterback because the interior pressure comes faster than anything else. So it's going to be a really big test for Quinnen Williams right away because they need help from the pass rush needs to supplement how weak this corner play is. So I'm really curious to see how it shakes out against a Bills group, like you said, that needs some time to build chemistry. Mitch Morse needs to really stay healthy. I loved Cody Ford last year. Most of his help, though, and aid will be in the run game rather than in pass protection. That's where he does his best work. And I think this is one of those things that could actually decide the game.
Yeah, it's interesting how you take a look at the way that it matches up, and you have some guys who can win one-on-one. The areas where maybe there's not the name recognition for the Jets, what worries me is is that going to allow Greg Williams to bring his exotic blitzes? Is that going to allow him to really spice it up? There's a lot of metrics that show, Williams blitzes twice as often as the average team in the NFL. And I think that's going to be very telling in the combination that Aaron spoke to on, is the line ready? Is Josh Allen really moving along in his development how we think he may be or how we hope he may be? And I think that's what's going to tell it very quickly is, can they make those decisions quickly? Can they diagnose where it's coming from? How often are they getting tricked? Because the Greg Williams defense is going to trick you on occasion.
Yeah.
How often is that happening? And are they able to identify it? I think that's going to be the key to the game.
And
who wins that chess game.
And I think Greg Williams unfairly, too, especially here in Buffalo, because his tenure here didn't go fantastic. I think that he's also another one of these coaches, though, that's an easy target. He's been on a few hard knocks. He comes off very abrasively, but the proof's in the pudding, and he puts together good defenses. And to Greg's point, one of my biggest concerns about this game is obviously the offensive line has some building to do and some gelling to do, but Josh Allen has not been able to process the game quickly. Yeah, and we haven't seen him with these new wide receivers. Maybe some of this will help Cole Beasley's ability to get open. He needs to see guys open, but I do think that playing Greg Williams week one makes it all that much faster of a jump from preseason to regular season, because he's going to force Josh Allen to think fast. Can you give us a little bit of maybe insight on how you see him planning against a guy like Allen? Because if it breaks down, Allen can use his legs, like you alluded to. So you do have to be careful with sending too much and letting him escape and get outside. But they're going to make him think fast and try to get him to make mistakes. How do you see them really attacking that?
Yeah, he's going to send a lot of guys. That's Greg. Greg does not care what his personnel is. He knows that he has corners out there that wouldn't normally be starting for a lot of NFL teams. Now we'll see if True's ready to go. That would help a little bit, but even then, he's been prone to getting beat over the top a lot last year. So, Greg's going to send the house at Josh Allen, and Josh Allen needs to be ready to either run or he needs to be able to get the ball out, because someone's going to be open. Yeah. That's the thing. So maybe two people at times. People are going to be open, and I think with Greg, the Jets are going to be a feast or famine defense. They're going to try to take away the football. They don't care if they give up 400 passing yards a game. If they come away with 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery and they win the game 32-27, then they don't care. That's the kind of unit they'll be. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he comes out of the gate. Now, the young quarterback, especially like Josh Allen, he's going to attack. He's going to attack over and over again. They're going to play a lot of single high, I think. Jamal Adams is going to be able to run around free and do whatever he wants. That's kind of how it seems they're going to do things this year, where Adams has the ability to blitz if he wants. He has the ability to drop in coverage and see everything in front of him to stop the run. So it's weird to almost have this sweeper kind of player on an NFL defense. But I think Adams has earned that. I think he's been good enough with everything they ask of him to handle that kind of role. So with Greg, it's really going to be a feast or famine defense. And I think if you're a Bills fan, part of you should be excited, because you're going to get, Josh Allen a significant test and growth from year 1 to 2 right out of the gate.
If you like safeties, which I do, when I did the scouting academy and stuff, I started with safety. I just love watching safeties play. This is a fantastic game for you with the caliber of NFL safeties that are going to be playing in this game. Is going to be a lot of fun for me to watch. And I'm excited to see how Adams takes a step with Greg Williams and that liberty that he's given him. I'm really excited to see his development, because I was huge on him in the draft. And obviously he's a big talker, and that's hard for other fan bases to like, but he's a guy that, even though I don't always like how he acts, I respect everything about his game.
Yeah, I think with Adams, I mean, you have a player that truly brings it all. And it's a cliche thing, but I haven't seen a Jet like him in a very long time, where it's a different level of attitude on the football field. And I think it's amazing how much better he got from year 1 to year 2 in coverage specifically. He really believes he could even play cornerback if he was asked to. And for the first time in a long time, because Revis was a quiet leader, for the first time in a long time, it's like the Jets have a real face and identity player on their defense.
No, and I think obviously you're hoping the same way that the Bills are hoping Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds turn into those guys. Yep. I think the same thing. The Jets are looking at hoping that it's Sam Darnold and Jamal Adams that are the face of each of those units, for a long, long time. We've now come to the part of the show where we're going to put you on the spot. We joked beforehand that both fan bases are irrationally confident in this game. Both fan bases, I think, assume far too little of the opponent they're about to play, and that it's a much closer matchup than what they realize. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Give us your prediction. What do you think the outcome and the score of the game is going to be?
Yeah, I am not irrationally confident in this one. I actually think – so we do the full schedule preview over summer at Stick to Football, and I have these teams splitting this year, and I have the Jets winning at home and the Bills winning at home. And I think, when you look at it, and that's why the line is the way it is. The Jets get 3 points because they're at home, but Vegas views them as even teams. I think this game will be really close. It seems like the Bills should cover in this game. It feels like, a 26-23, a 26-24 kind of game where each team is going to have their points. I think when it comes down to it right now, I just think Sam has a lot to work with coming out of this game. And I think Josh Allen is one of those players where I think we'll see a much better second half of the season from him than first half. I think both of these guys need time. I was trying to explain to fans, I think Darnold is going to turn the ball over a lot again this year, but I think the production is going to be really high as well. Same could probably be said for Josh Allen at times. I think, do you want him running for 700 yards? Not really, because you don't want him to take hits like he has before in the past. But, the kind of playmaker he is that, sometimes it's worth it for him. So I think these teams split. I do think the Jets win at home week one in a really, really close game that could be – there's going to be big plays in this one. There really is. I think both defenses not as much the Bills, but I think the Jets defense will get beat vertically. It's going to happen. Josh Allen has to make those throws. We've seen him make them in the past. We've also seen him miss them in the past. It's the kind of erratic young quarterback play you expect. So, I'm not as confident as both sides seem to be. It's kind of crazy to me. I think both of these teams are hovering around that 7-win mark this year, where there's a difference between a bad 7 wins and a good 7 wins.
Sure.
And I think these are two teams that hit the reset button 2 years ago by going and getting their young quarterbacks in an aggressive fashion. They have coaches that they both are buying into that are high energy guys that are trying to be disciplined guys. And they have a lot of turnover on the team right now. We talked about all the additions the Bills have made in the offseason that haven't gelled together, and the same with the Jets. So I think it's a good 7-win kind of situation, maybe 8 in the right situation. But once again, these teams are truly, truly even.
Yeah, I think this is a great case study for all the people that love toxic differential. I think that these two teams are going to live and die by big plays on both sides of the ball. Either, Josh Allen doing the boneheaded stuff that we fear that he's going to do. He did a little bit of in preseason.
Yeah, the crossfield throws.
I think you're going to see a lot of it. And with it comes the big plays. And it's just a matter of if you can be on the right side of the toxic differential. And whoever that is going to be, I think ends up winning this game. And I think it's a good case study for the people that really believe in that.
Before we jump into Aaron and I's breakdown and our prediction for the game, we want to be respectful of Connor's time. Thank you for fitting us in here. You're a busy man, a lot of different shows going on. One more time before we let you go, let the people know where to find you and maybe what you have coming up next that they can look forward to.
Yeah, of course. I'm at Connor J. Rogers on Twitter, covering the NFL, college football, mainly the NFL draft. My podcast, Stick to Football, will be in Austin, Texas this weekend for LSU, Texas. I will be flying home very, very early.
Man.
Very, very early Sunday morning to watch Jets-Bills at 1 Eastern sharp. So it's going to be a fun weekend, boys. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, man. If you make it up to Buffalo in your trip around the country, let's grab some wings and talk football.
Definitely. Hopefully not too hostile up there for a Jets fan to be around. So
it's not too bad.
I really appreciate it, guys.
Cool.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on.
Later.
All right. So, Aaron.
It's just me and you, man.
Yeah.
Premium Slack members, all you people that aren't premium Slack members didn't get to come and watch this. These two beautiful men go at it.
It was a lot of fun. And a guy like Connor is very educated, knows a ton about football, and I think speaks very reasonably about where these are. And I think you and I interact a ton on Twitter with both the occasional Jets fan and go back and forth where they'll chime in on things. But we spend a lot of time with a lot of Bills fans, and the level of confidence is exciting. I think it's great that there's been legitimate reason for excitement and confidence, but it's definitely reached the tipping point where I'm a little bit nervous of where that's at. What do you predict for this weekend coming into our first game of the year?
Yeah, so ultimately, overall, I agree with Connor's assessment that these teams are probably closer than they think. I don't know that Bills are a 7-win team in my mind, but I don't know that the difference is a coin flip. Maybe I have them as like an 8-9 win team, so on the higher end of that. I think where the edge is really on the defensive side of the ball. I think both teams have enough weapons to score points and make big plays and even break on good defenses. I think they both have that ability. Both have young quarterbacks that have very big flaws but can make a lot of plays. But I think ultimately the Bills defense is more sound. It's got the continuity. It's more well-rounded all across the board. They have just equally as good of a defensive coordinator, just not as brash or aggressive, so he doesn't get the media recognition. But I think that they have the edge there, and I think that edge is pretty significant. I do. I like some of the pieces on the Jets defense, but not the overall unit like the Bills have. And not only is the unit good for the Bills, but it's deep. And so I think that as this game goes on, because the week one, people get gassed. We know that's going to happen. These guys haven't played a full game. Some of these guys are going to get gassed. So this is really time to kind of show off your depth early here in the season. And I have the Bills winning this game at a score of 24-17. I think that it'll be close for moments, but I think in the end they'll be able to hold it off. And it'll primarily be the defense that gets this done. I can see a special teams or defensive touchdown. I don't think all 24 points are coming from the offense, but I think that Darnold's going to make opportunities for this defense to get either really good field position or score.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and I think the difference is the top end versus the depth. I think if you stacked up the best players on the Jets defense against the best players on the Bills defense, the Jets might have 4 or 5 of the top 6 or 7 players overall. I think that their top 4 or 5 guys are exceptional when you talk about, Jamal Adams, C.J. Mosley, both Williamses, even Marcus May. That's a really exciting core of 4 or 5 guys. But then it's possible that besides, our very top guys, for the Bills, it's possible that the next 11 or 12 or 13 are all the Bills, and that depth and the ability to rotate, the ability to keep fresh, like you touched on. This is the 3rd year with Leslie Frazier. This is the 3rd year with Sean McDermott. This is the 3rd year of Trey White and Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and Jerry Hughes and Matt Milano, and so many players now going into their 3rd year of knowing this defense inside and out. I think that stability is going to be key. I think you're spot on. I think that your score is pretty close. I do think John Brown's going to get loose for a fun one. I think that he's going to get behind them once or twice. I do think that Cole Beasley can wiggle loose a little bit. I'm nervous that, Greg Williams is going to scare Josh into an ugly one, and we just have to hope either they don't pick it off or they don't take it back for a score if they get it there, and maybe it falls off their hands. But I certainly could see something in that. I was going to say 27-20 in that ballpark. I think that the Bills can win this. I think they can take it home with holding them close. I think that you could see something where going into the second half, the Jets might have 3 or 6 points, and then maybe they get loose for one later on. I do think that the defensive philosophy of keeping everything in front of you is key, but just like we saw last year, when you have deep threats like Robbie Anderson, that gets dangerous. Assuming that we're going to keep a Le'Veon Bell fenced in the entire time, on 9 out of 10 plays, I think Milano and Edmonds can stay with Bell the whole time. But if he gets going and gets in the right area and, maybe one of those plays that Tremaine Edmonds does get over aggressive and gets caught up in the wash and they get him loose on a wheel route, those are the kind of things that make me nervous that could bring this into play and potentially leave everyone a little bit concerned. But I do think the Bills can bring it home 27-20.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of things that we didn't get to talk about with Connor on, but that one of the things that scares me, and he was talking about the Bills being able to maybe neutralize Bell, and I don't think that he's off on that. I respect Bell maybe more than a lot of people do. I'm a running backs matter kind of guy. I like the position still. The thing with the Jets that scares me is you look, again, I think on the other side of the ball, maybe that their top-end talent is better than the Bills when it comes to their top-end guys. But that maybe the Bills have that more depth. But you look at their wide receivers and Anderson and Nunua, but what scares me, and you touched on this here before we went live, was Bell, Montgomery, and Powell can also play outside and create an extra receiver. And if you have a formation where you have Anderson and Nunua, Bell's split out, and Ty Montgomery's in the backfield, or Bell's in the backfield and Ty Montgomery's split out, I feel a little concerned about the amount of stress that puts on Milano and Edmonds, not only in coverage, but in McDermott and Frazier's ability to apply pressure in different areas. Because if you're sending those guys and then you're dropping Trent Murphy against Ty Montgomery or something. I don't like that matchup. That's not something that I want to see. And Sam Darnold is a smart enough guy. He's going to see that and pick that apart. So I don't love that. And I think that maybe causes a little more stress than some of us Bills fans are thinking, is the versatility of their backfield and what they can do with that to not only dictate coverage to the defense, clean it up a little bit for Sam Darnold, who's a rookie, to be able to kind of see the field a little bit more and show him what he's getting pre-snap. Those things matter in a game like this where it could be close. And I think that is probably putting a little more pressure than at least I was thinking on before this conversation, talking about the Jets team.
Yeah, and I think another key element that's going to really bring it into play is how much do the three interior linemen for the Jets have in the tank? Ryan Khalil just coming back from retirement. Brian Winters has been a long time, stalwart and at one time All-Pro back with the Chiefs. Kelechi Osemele was an All-Pro level guy with the Raiders. Neither Osemele or Winters had very good years last year. Khalil retired and just came back and is going to be having his first game action. If the three of them play up to their name value, I think it could be a problem. I think that they could really clear the way, be able to make things difficult. If they struggle again, I do think it could snowball a little bit. I think if you start getting interior pressure right in Darnold's face, and then you're letting guys like Hughes and Murphy finish it off and clean up, and then you're letting an aggressive secondary really start to, jump on balls. I do think that what Connor touched on with, Darnold is a very developed passer. I think he has a brighter future than many Bills fans want to acknowledge, but he does throw the ball up for grabs more than what teams would like, more than what the Jets would like. And he is going to be aggressive. And I think that could be the key there. If the three interior linemen can keep him clean, I think he can hit Jamison Crowder getting loose. I think he can hit Robbie Anderson getting deep. If he gets pressure in his face, I think Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer could get their hands on the ball and be able to make him pay for it.
Yeah, and I think that's a matchup that's, again, the one that I feel comfortable for the Bills in that Darnold will probably win some of those, but I think ultimately the Bills' depth is going to give that interior offensive line of the Jets some issues. They haven't played a ton this summer. I know that these guys are a little bit older and they're vets and stuff, but there's a huge difference in playing preseason quarter to playing a four-quarter NFL game and a rotation of depth that can come in and get pressure. Jordan Phillips is a guy that could start for a lot of teams in this league, and he's going to be a rotational guy in this game, coming in fresh legs while you're, huffing and puffing, trying to drive down the field. And I think that is the kind of stuff that, we talk about the depth of this team. We've talked about it all year. This is really where it's going to come into fruition, is especially early in the year when guys are just getting their game legs under them. You're trying to build up that, especially along the offensive line, having that depth to be able to rotate out. Offensive line doesn't rotate out. They're in it for that drive. And so if you can beat them up and cause those problems, and I think they can. I like the way Star Lotulelei looked this summer. I think that he's going to be able to get in there and beat them up a little bit early, and then it really sets it up for the guys like Jordan Phillips and Harrison Phillips. And I think you're going to see a lot of Ed Oliver, even though they kind of sprinkled him in a little bit throughout the preseason. I think they got a very specific plan for him to develop some of that interior pressure that you were talking about. That could be a real big problem for Darnold. They know that, and they're going to try to get Ed Oliver in there in his face early.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see it, and I think it's really what's going to help decide this game. The couple of things we talked about, can the Bills guys on the outside get loose on what is a weaker secondary and edge pressure for the Jets, and then the opposite, can the Jets hold up the middle, and can the Bills get pressure up the middle? I think those two things on each side of the ball are going to decide it. So I know that's going to be our normal routine for all the fans listening here. We're back into our rhythm. We'll do our preview shows every Wednesday. We'll do our game recaps on Sunday. But today we'll add in one extra little piece here. Aaron and I have hinted at it back and forth, but I know that he had touched on what he's kind of projecting. Let's go through and kind of give an idea of what we expect the projected record to be for this year. For the
put me on the spot.
That's right. And I'll start out and go through that. I've gone through the schedule several times, and I think it's even scary the start that the team could get off to. And I think that if they're going to be in the running for the Bills for a playoff spot, for even in the running, in the hunt, whether they actually get home with it or not, they're going to have to start out 3-0. They're going to have to start out 5-2. They're going to have to start out 7-3 with some of those games. You have to be able to take care of games against the Dolphins twice, the Redskins, the Titans, the Bengals, the Giants, the Jets. you have to win those games, because that stretch at the end where they go through Cowboys, Ravens, Steelers, Patriots, that's 4 games where you're going to be pretty healthy underdogs in each of those games. And that not that you're going to go 0-4, but that's an ugly stretch that it's going to be tough to be able to hammer home. So I do think they get off to a good start. I do think that Sean McDermott's the kind of coach that can keep that kind of momentum and excitement going, not let them get full of themselves. We've joked before that I'm pretty confident watching film on Mondays with Sean McDermott is not a fun exercise. Even after wins, I have a feeling he's not an enjoyable coach to watch film with. And that I think he can keep them hungry, keep the chip on their shoulder, and being able to do that. And that I don't think it's crazy to think that they could get to 9 or even 10 wins, and that I think that will come off like a homer. But looking at this and where some of the changes come from, all of a sudden having an Andrew Luck retire and opening up another spot in the AFC, some of the, now that I'm not terribly worried about either game against Miami, and before I thought they were maybe pluckier than what fans were looking at. I think that some of the games that are tougher for us are in the back end of the schedule, that you never know what happens by then with some injury things here and there, and what if a key guy is missing from one of those teams. So having some of those winnable matchups early on could build some confidence, roll some momentum, get them excited and buying into what Sean McDermott's selling. And I think that's a little bit dangerous. And I think that that's a possibility. It could be exciting. And I'm going to put myself out there. I actually think 10-6 is feasible. And I think that it's a possibility that they could do that. And if they get to that, I think they will get a playoff spot. And I think that they have a very legitimate chance at being a wild card team. And I try to be reasonable and manage expectations at all time, but I've gone over the top. I'm excited about what this team has put together and what I think they're going to be able to do here with the depth of the roster and the excitement that they've built. And I'm going to predict that I think the Bills go 10-6 and get a wild card, make this a fun and exciting season.
So I'm always the pump the brakes guy. I'm always trying to temper expectations. And for the last, 3-4
But this
weeks,
time, 16-0.
Honestly, so for the last few weeks, I've sat on my porch and just shaking my head like, you can't do this, man. I've been trying not to get my expectations too high for this team. I've been trying to stay really grounded, try to be pragmatic, and bring that type of view to the team. I keep looking at the schedule. This is why I hate picking the Bills and hate schedule projections and strength of schedule or anything like that. But I'm looking at this schedule, and there's not a lot that scares me on this schedule. And there's not a lot of teams that I don't think that they can go toe-to-toe with. Now, granted, people are going to laugh and call me a homer when they hear my final projection for this thing. And I know that they're going to lose some games that I think are easy and that they should totally win. It happens every year. There's games that I think we should totally go in and win. They end up losing. There's going to be games that we probably think that we should have no business in, that they end up coming away with a win. It's just how it is. But looking at this, there's only a few games that scare me, right? Cleveland scares me. Philadelphia scares me. I don't think they're getting as much love as they should be nationally. I think that game scares me a little bit. I think Baltimore doesn't scare me. I think a lot of people are scared by that game. Pittsburgh's another one that doesn't scare me. The 2 New England games are going to scare me forever, and that's just years of just beatdowns and abuse. And until I see it happen with any regular consistency, that's going to scare me, and I'm going to chalk that up as losses. But I think this team can go 4-2 in the division. I think that they have to if they want any shot at the playoffs. And I think really, man, when I look at the schedule, I have them at 11-5. And I don't think that that is the totally craziest thing. So I have the 5 losses are 2 to New England, Philly, Cleveland, Dallas. Outside of that, I think they can go to toe-to-toe with every one of those other teams and pull out a win.
No, I think it's funny because we do spend so much time, whether it's in the premium Slack channel, on Twitter, just kind of tempering expectation, like, hey, hold on here. We did it today multiple times with Duke Williams, and that, hey, you can be excited that he's on the roster and that he's on the practice squad and here, and it doesn't have to mean that he's being oppressed by the, Brandon Beane keeping him off the 53. Like, it's okay to be excited, but it is funny how there's so little attention. We got a few glimpses here and there. Adam Shine has been all about the Bills. Michael Robinson on Good Morning Football has been all about the Bills. Field Yates has been very excited about what's being built here. The people who talk about them are people who I do respect and think are sharp football minds, but it's hard not to get overexcited and not to get ahead of ourselves of where this is going. So I think the fact that as much time and effort as you and I put in trying to temper expectations, trying to be reasonable, and both of us are seeing double digits and 10 and 11 wins, I think is exciting. And I think that's a reason to hopefully have genuine optimism going.
And I want people to, before people come into my Twitter and start killing me, and which I'm totally prepared for. I'm ready for it. I cleared my schedule for the next couple of days. But before that, like, I really have been consistently saying I think it's an 8-9 win team. But then when I sat down and was looking at the schedule and going over it, it was hard for me to get it down to 8 wins if I was trying to stick into that area, because like I said, I think that they can really go toe to toe with all those teams. And even some of the teams I put them as losses, I don't know. I think that they are on par as far as like just rolling out an average football team. And we talk about it a lot with if it comes down to the players maybe are a little bit more even. I'm going to err on the side of Sean McDermott's preparedness and Leslie Frazier's preparedness, and know that the team has that expectation of what they're supposed to do, and they're going to meet that. And I think that a lot of the times that's enough to put you over the edge in a close game. So the ball bounces funny in football. It could, I say 11-5, it could be a 7-win team. I don't know, but I think it's an 8-9 win team. But when I look at the schedule and how that lines up from this year, I had to keep picking wins, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, it's too close to the season and the excitement's boiling over. But I'm on the record now. So 11-5, come at me all over Twitter.
I love it. And I think it's fun to be able to go in there. The couple other things we've looked at, the team's relatively healthy. I think that we're looking at Tyler Kroft is the only player that's of any note that's missing anything, and looks to be back within a week or two here, that we're going to have a full complement from that standpoint.
Roberts may miss, so there's some quad. Yes. I haven't heard the extent of the quad injury. That would be a shame for him if he wasn't able. That he circled the Jets opener in New Jersey, wanting to do a little redemption on them. So that'd be a bummer for him personally if he doesn't get to go.
Yeah, if for anyone who likes to wager and do like individual prop bets or live bets during the game, bet every cent you have that Andre Roberts does not take a touchback on the opening kickoff and does everything in his power to return that opening kick. If he's active for the game, he is taking that ball and running with it. I'll guarantee it.
Yeah, absolutely. And outside, though, I want to get your opinion on this, because I don't always respect your opinions, but I respect your opinions when it comes to roster building. You've done a lot of the projections and things like that. Looking at this roster and the 53 they got, where do you think the inactives this week? There's been a lot of talk on Twitter. Where do you think the inactives this week are coming down to trim it to 46?
Yeah, it's funny. That was a challenge that Sal made when we did the interview with him the other night. Now that you talk about the depth and the excitement of the roster, the hard part is trying to
pick 7 guys.
What are the 7 guys that don't play? So I think a couple of them are easy. I think that you have your backup linemen. I think Botger and McDermott are super easy, and I think Bates. I think it's very likely that this opening weekend, especially with it looking like Ford's going to be at tackle with Feliciano starting, I think that you have Nsekhe, you have Long, and you're good on the interior with 7 linemen. I think that McKenzie is your 4th guy. That you have the 3 backup linemen. You have your 6th wide receiver. I think that those are your 4. On defense, I think that it's going to come in somewhere with the safeties, that you're going to be able to have Dean Marlowe, maybe Jaquan Johnson are going to be a couple that are there. And then it's really tough to figure out.
Well, you got Kroft too, right? Kroft's on the 53, so he'll be an inactive.
Kroft will be the easy one that starts it out. So getting in there is, are you going to use all 6 linebackers? I think Saran Neal and Mo Alexander are too valuable on special teams. So right now, that'd be my guess, is the 3 linemen, McKenzie, Dean Marlowe, Jaquan Johnson, and Tyler Kroft. I think those are the 7 that we see. And it'll be interesting to see if we see any variation there. They've messed around a little bit with 3 down linemen from a tackle standpoint with Harrison Phillips, but I think in game 1 you want to be prepared in case the Jets run the ball. I think all the linebackers contribute on special teams. The same thing, you can't cut short Kevin Johnson or Taron Johnson, so you need Saran Neal on special teams. So my guess would be Marlowe, Jaquan Johnson, Tyler Kroft, McKenzie, and the 3 linemen.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And we're kind of right in line where I am. This is kind of a twofold question, I think, for you here. So Andre Roberts is hurt. Hopefully he's able to go. If he's not, Two things kind of popped up to me on the Bills depth chart. We saw Devin Singletary as the backup kick returner. Did we even see him take any kick returns or anything in preseason? I haven't seen it. That surprised me a little bit to see him there. Do you think that that's actually what's going to happen if we go into a game without Andre Roberts? Is Devin Singletary going to be returning kicks and then Micah Hyde returning punts, or are we going to see McKenzie get back there?
Yeah, I think my guess is you would just directly swap McKenzie for Roberts in both roles, and that you would inactivate Roberts if the quad isn't healed, and that McKenzie would return both punts and kicks, and then be the gadget guy on offense. That I think they have a couple things mixed in for Roberts with some bubble screens and jet sweeps. And I think McKenzie could do that, and he's 95% of what Roberts is in most of those scenarios. So my guess is that, and that I don't pay a ton of mind to the depth chart because the depth chart still shows, I think, Tyler Kroft is tight end 1. Yeah. And it has a couple other weird pieces there that I think that's way more public relations than it is directly from Dable and Frazier and McDermott.
Wait, so Lee Smith's not going to be tight end 1?
Wait, hold on. Now, hold on. We got into this in the premium Slack channel. If there's one thing that I'm going to bet money on Sean McDermott, it's that Frank Gore is getting the first snap at running back, not Devin Singletary, and Lee Smith is getting the first snap at tight end and not Knox or Sweeney. Now, I don't think they're going to play the most snaps at those positions, but when the paperwork gets submitted of who the starters are, it's going to be Frank Gore and Lee Smith.
Oh, yeah. And another thing that's classy about that is a lot of times you see number of starts that a guy gets has a contract incentive somewhere. So if there is any of that for these guys, I think McDermott throws people bones in those situations too. But definitely I think he rolls out the vets just to roll them out for sure.
Yeah. So we'll kind of see where that goes. I think that it's exciting. Again, Ty Nsekhe was the other piece that he's not on the injury report, and that I don't know if they're just easing him in or if they want to get a look at Cody Ford at tackle, or maybe it's because of how strong the depth, how stout the interior pass rush is. Maybe in this first game they didn't want Cody Ford's first action to be against Leonard Williams, and they were going to give John Feliciano that assignment. I don't know what it is, but I'm a little surprised that I feel pretty strongly that Ty Nsekhe is one of our 5 best offensive linemen. I also don't hate the idea of maybe going heavy here and there and running with 6 linemen and Lee Smith with those 7 across the board with, Frank Gore in the backfield. And I think that is an option that they can deploy against a team like this and try to get off the edge that way. But I'm a little surprised that Ty Nsekhe's not in there when it appears that he's healthy.
Yeah. No, it's bugging me a little bit. I'm chalking a lot of this up to they're not going to say anything in the media that they don't have to. Obviously, the media was at practice the other day when Ford was lined up at tackle. Maybe there's something to that. Traditionally, there is. I'm hoping when Sunday rolls around that Ford is kicked into the interior. And I know there's issues with him there. There's issues with him at tackle. He's a rookie. He's going to make some mistakes. But I don't think that you necessarily – I agree with you, Rick, in hiding him against good interior linemen. But you're going to face that all year in the NFL. And I don't know that I like the idea of hiding him. If you're not comfortable playing him against these guys, then don't play him there at all.
Yeah, so I am going to give this until week 2 and assume that, hey – Ty Nsekhe didn't get a ton of practice time. He was a little dinged up with the knee. They already got the reps in there. And that I think John Feliciano's kind of earned a few more reps, and that they want to give him that nod. That I'm going to chalk it up to that for now. And if the game plan goes great, then, hey, don't mess with it. Don't mess with the good thing, and just be happy that we have superior depth. If they need to after this, I think then you can pivot. And if we have any struggle with that setup, and then next week we don't see Ty Nsekhe inserted, I'll be a little bit concerned then, or a little confused. But right now, I'm comfortable with the fact that they didn't get a ton of time to gel that way. Feliciano got a ton of those reps. Cody Ford got a ton of reps at right tackle. You have Leonard Williams and Quinn Williams on the inside, and that you wouldn't mind giving that to a veteran and not a rookie in his first game. So I'm okay with going that route, but it's still, there's a piece of me that's a little curious or confused at why Ty Nsekhe's not out there, but we'll see what happens. And like you said, it certainly could just be gamesmanship, and that we see them walk out with, Morris, Ford, and Nsekhe as a starting right side when the game starts.
I'm just going to keep putting that positive energy out into the world and hope that when I turn on my TV at 1:00 on Sunday, that's what I see.
I love it.
You got to think it into existence, man. That's what that's all the self-help books I've read say.
No, hey, I'm down for anything. I'll light some sage on fire and try
Drink some kombucha, dim the lights, light some sage, and think about it.
I like it. So let's get things wrapped up here. Again, for anybody that is out there listening, it really helps us. Give us a rating, give us a review. We work hard to get guests like Connor on here to be able to talk with you guys, interviewing Sal Capaccio, bringing good people onto the show, Marcel, all the other guys that are out there. We work hard to bring those people to you and to be able to do this, but we do it out of the goodness of our heart. So tell a friend, tell your neighbor, walk down the street and knock on doors and tell people about Cover One and help. Can I have a minute to talk about the process? And let them know what's going on. Give us a rating or review, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you're listening to us. Let somebody know about it. Come and download the app. Sign up for a premium membership. I can't speak highly enough of how great it is in the community that's there. And by far the best value that's about to come up is our premium Slack channel on game day is off the charts. It's fantastic. And I can't recommend that enough, being able to be in there and be able to be alongside all the people that care as much as you do. So, Aaron, where can the people find you and your good works?
Real quick, I have 2 corrections to make on this podcast. First of all, I said Duke Johnson when I clearly meant Duke Williams. I was talking in the moment. It happens all. So everybody that's about to kill me on Twitter, kill me for something else, I already know I messed that up. Thank you. Second correction is Greg said we all work hard to get those guests on. That's not true at all. I haven't done anything to get any guests on. That's all been Greg doing a great job. I've been out for the last month or so, and Greg's really held it together and probably improved the show without me. So appreciate all the hard work that you've put in and getting us ready for the season here. So don't be humble. Take the credit. And people can find me at Aaron Quinn 716. You've probably seen me on there before. I get into it with whoever wants to. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. So come interact with me. And if I'm not, I found out somebody messaged me that they're like, hey, you're not following me. I need to DM you. If I'm not following you on Twitter, just tell me and I'll come follow you. I mean to do it all the time, but I don't always click the follow button on anyone. So follow me. I'll follow you back.
Come and find me as well. Always having fun. Usually trying to snipe in and jump in on other people's conversations and just poke them in the ribs a little bit. That's my favorite. But come and find me at Greg Tomsett, GregTompsett. I appreciate the kind words, Aaron, but I mean it genuinely. It's been exciting to have you back. I'm ready to get back into the rhythm of things, and we can attack this season full force.
Absolutely, man.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening to Cover One. We are out.